Hey everyone, and welcome to the GRC Room for 5 Questions. I'm Mike Andrews here once again with Karina Klever, and we're happy to welcome Lee Carsten, who's the founder and CEO of Whitecap Risk Advisors. How are you doing today, Lee?
Doing great.
Awesome. We're really glad you're here with us. So without further ado, let me pass it to Karina for a brief intro and the first question.
Thank you, Mike. Lee, thank you so much for being here with us today. We're happy to have you. I am Karina Klever of Klever Compliance, and we do compliance management as a service. So first question, Lee, what part of cyber GRC do you believe that businesses struggle with the most?
I think the struggle is really around governance, not necessarily compliance. The checklists are easy to follow if there is a checklist. The harder problem is how that gets connected to the business and what cyber risks actually mean so the business can make decisions.
That's a great point, and I always say no to checkbox compliance. And we're missing a lot of governance because we're satisfying the checkboxes, and it just really puts a lot of threat into our environments.
Yeah, and the work that I do, the space that I'm in is the AEC space, the architecture, engineering, and construction space. Something I've learned from them is really to attach cyber to safety, because their safety programs are very well built out. It is part of their culture. So it's not calling cyber risks like cyber safety, but it is taking some of the elements that work really well. I mean, there's measured studies in that industry that show a 655% increase in safety with a program that's mature. They measure things like when you listen to them talk, I just want to just insert cyber in everything, because like there's the TRIR, which is a measurement of incidents per 100 people, and the LTIR, which is a measurement of if someone gets hurt, how many days of work they miss. And there's like these step programs with the Associated Builders and Contractors, and AGC is another group that has similar programs. And it's something that I find just really, really interesting, and I'm spending a lot of time really working how we could leverage programs like that where there's safety cultures in organizations that we could attach to.
Is that training? How is that reinforced continually in the culture?
So it's a process. Like the ABC, the Associated Builders and Contractors, has a process called STEP, which is safety training and evaluation. So there's an auditing framework, there's training that happens, there's achievement levels, there's benchmarks. It's fully built out. And like I would encourage you to go check that out. Look at the STEP program from the Associated Builders and Contractors group.
That's neat.
That's a really good insight on that. For like, instead of taking cyber and saying, okay, you guys need to do this, it's brand new, let me just shove it at you my way, you looked at to see what's similar, what's working, and let me deliver that in the same format, because you're going to get better results when you think that way.
Not just better results. I think that the AEC space could be the most secure if they applied the safety principles to cyber, just because the safety is so good.
Well, I mean, the one thing I know, just checkbox compliance, right? The regulations and frameworks say training annually. So you do as little as possible once a year, and it's not an everyday thing that we live and breathe. It's this very kind of passive, okay, it satisfies the auditor next, right?
Right.
And in the difference between doing something for 7 minutes, some of these videos once a year versus living it on a daily basis and being reinforced, that's leadership too, right? That says, this is important for me, for you to succeed, you have to be conscious of this. Right?
For sure. And it impacts their surety bonds. The TRIR rate gets factored into that. So there's a direct financial impact to what they're doing, whether they're going to get picked for projects. And near miss reporting, which is something that's really hard for people in the field to do. They don't want to do it because they don't want to admit that they had a near miss. The paperwork is cumbersome. There are some AI technologies coming along that allow like voice recording and intelligent conversation, and you can even take pictures or just a video of the site and say, hey, this guy on the roof is not clipped in, like things that you notice along the way, and it's going to improve even more than it is.
Awesome. Great info, Lee. So with that, Lee, there's a lot of breaches in the news at companies big and small. What's one data breach that stood out to you the most, and why that one?
I'm not sure if somebody's already said this on this podcast, but the Stryker breach to me was the one that was a little more different, just because it was state sponsored and it was destructive. So, I mean, just, with leveraging, like living off the land, getting an admin credential, going to Intune and blowing away 80 to 200,000 devices was certainly interesting. From an insurance perspective, Lloyd's of London has really restructured the act of war language, and I'm not as plugged into the insurance space as I used to. And I am looking forward to hearing how this plays out, what the claim plays out like, because that could impact your coverage, which is a lot of the protection that you have in an event like that.
Yeah, with their sector, it just shows, like, everyone thinks cyber is like so far removed from physical harm, but Stryker, they're a company that's like medical field devices. This could have real world ramifications, like physically.
Yeah, and even when you talk about that in the construction space, there's an exposure around building automation systems, and the story that everybody's heard is Target from 2014 or whenever that was. But the building automation systems are becoming more complex, more plugged in. All the smart building stuff and like LEED certified and all the energy certifications you have to have. 75% of building automation systems already have known exploitable vulnerabilities. Johnson Controls and Honeywell, the Honeywell Niagara framework in 2023 and 2025 had some pretty major vulnerability disclosures that occurred. And now there's like NIS2 in the EU and NIST 2, CSF 2.0 that NIST, while it's voluntary, does have a compliance exposure for a breach of a building automation system. And that's like dead in the middle of everything that the folks that I support are dealing with.
So NIST 2 in Europe, I absolutely love. We actually have a client that we're working with implementing NIST 2 for them, and the supply chain requirements and the risk management requirements are just phenomenal. I mean, I'm really impressed. And the hard notification requirements, right, for your incidents, because here, we have a bunch of contractual language that says within lawful blah, 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 blah. So there's no commitment at all for companies to be notified. And at least with NIST 2, it's just great because it's a very specific time parameters to be notified.
Yeah, we have the pesky thing about states' rights and all the attorneys general everywhere that have slightly different takes. So it would be nice to have a standardized framework like that, but we have to deal with what we have to deal with.
Okay, so then the next question is, what is the most impactful GRC-related advice that you've ever received?
So prior to starting Whitecap Risk Advisors, I spent the last 9 years at Aon. So I really got to be in the room with the money people, CFOs, CEOs, treasurers, risk managers, and that changes how I think about risk. And it's really an enterprise risk perspective that I look at things with. So Aon has a global risk survey, and the number one risk on the survey from last year was cyber breaches. If you look at the whole thing, it's business interruption, economic slowdown, regulatory changes, increased competition, commodity price risk, supply chain, brand reputation, geopolitical volatility, and cash flow or liquidity. And that was last year. I would love to see the difference today, because you talk about geopolitical volatility, some of the things in the economy, commodity prices, all of those are going to jump way up this year. So even in the enterprise risk space, it's very dynamic, and what is happening in the news really impacts what is happening in the companies, and how that how that gets rolled down to what we have to deal with.
Yeah, you're always bringing up really useful studies. It's like the way people might perceive things to play out, it's not always the case, and you do a good job of looking for the root cause and seeing what the right people think. That's awesome. So Lee, that kind of takes us into the next question, and I think I could answer this for you, what you're good at. But what would you say is something that you do differently that allows you to excel in this field from your perspective?
Do you want to take a stab at it?
Well, I think you're really good at balancing cyber business and legal, like we talked about before, and your takes on cyber insurance are phenomenal. So if anyone watching this has questions about cyber insurance, I'd say Lee is a good person to speak to about that. How would you answer that?
I think I'm just a student and really look to learn as much as I can about what I'm doing. The last 9 months has been, trial by fire, drinking from the fire hose, whatever example you want to use about the AEC space. And it's been a ton of fun. It's super interesting to me. It's people that I like working with and like to be around. And so I'm learning a lot about their operating model and how they do things. And there's a lot of sophistication there. There is a board member in the local ABC chapter that calls it like white collar construction. The jobs are changing, and it's not just people with shovels and backhoes, but there's a lot going on in the space, and it's a really fun place to be.
So great, open mind and curiosity. That's very important to have. Okay, so the last question is, what is the top one thing today that a business can do to strengthen their cyber GRC program?
I would say you need to rethink how you're doing drills or tabletop exercises. There are AI platforms available, and I partner with some guys in LA, and I'm so impressed with what they built and what can be built and how quickly this is evolving. But instead of using a PowerPoint-based tabletop exercise where everyone in the room gets every inject at the same time, AI lets you do a number of things. It lets you build quicker scenarios quicker and better scenarios. It can be used not just for cyber, but for crisis management and all the stuff we've been talking about. You can have agents participate in the exercise, and the agents can both be responsive or proactive, and they can show up. You can have a threat actor show up. You can have a reporter show up. You can have a customer show up. You can have a legal team that's just on standby, and if anybody has a question, and everyone in the tabletop, at least in their platform, has their own console. So you investigate things on your own or as a team, and it's up to you to bring them to the call to say, this is what we found, or I just got this email, or I just saw this on social media, and then everything's being recorded. So the debrief is very specific. And instead of getting an after action report that said, hey, you guys did a good job, or like everybody after a football game is getting pat on the back, the parents are saying great game. It's like having a coach watch each person, see what they did right, what they missed, give them real specific feedback. And because the scenario is built in the platform, you can even rerun it 3 months and do an A/B difference to see how much the team's improved.
Yeah, that's so important. I always say drill, 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 because having lived through the wildfires here in LA, I would get phone calls from technicians who are like, I'm reading these DR documents and it says frequently. What the hell's a frequently? Can this wait till next week? Right? Because they don't know, and they haven't been provided training or instructions on this needs to happen every 5 minutes, or you need to do this once a day at 6 p.m. and those kinds of things, because what follows that, I don't know if my house is burning. I don't know where my kids and my wife is. And the panic in their voices, all you want them to have is just a really quick set of instructions that they can execute and go on, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot, there's HR things that surface that were not well executed on, like identifying remote people. Like they don't know that they're supposed to call into HR because everybody knows LA's on fire. So it was just messy, and drilling every scenario. I can only reinforce what you're saying. That's a great advice.
Yeah, well said by both of you. Thanks so much for joining us today, Lee. If you're watching this, want to connect with Lee, you can find him on LinkedIn and reach out to him and reach out to us. So have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us.